Okay, so from one extremely exciting prospect in the centre midfield to another, but we're going to the northeast this time, Stefan, with Lewis Ferguson, who impressed at Hamilton before he even went there. He seems to have kicked on even more. What's impressed you about him so far for Aberdeen?
I think probably the greatest compliment I can pay Ferguson is that I actually, before we started looking into putting this list together, I actually just assumed he was like 24 or 25 because, and that's not a dig at how your average male in the west of Scotland looks because I also struggle with that problem. But he's a bit like Campbell. He just strikes me as a player who seems to have just been around for ages. And again, that's also just a testament to how well he's done so early on. This is actually only his second full season in the Scottish Premiership. If you actually, it isn't even because people won't be able to finish one, it would seem. So he's arguably only had one full season, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he's already just established himself as not only just kind of like a useful player for Aberdeen, but he's obviously one of the leaders in that team. He's a player that Derek McInnes clearly relies upon and clearly hopes to build a squad around, as he had done with Kenny McLean before that and Graham Shinney, etc. And I think he just seems to be getting better and better. His stats this season, transfer marks, he's got 3 goals and 9 assists, which is a little different from the 8 goals and 8 assists he got last season. And I think it's quite telling that his roles obviously changed slightly from last season, where he perhaps was a kind of box to box or maybe even more of an attacking midfielder. It strikes me as that he does kind of have. He's kind of slowly evolving into more of an almost playmaker for Aberdeen. If you want to kind of quote some stats, the ones that really stood out to me was that last season he was creating 4.98 passes to the final third. That's gone up slightly to about 5.79, but the accuracy of those passes has gone up by 10% from 51% to 61%. And his passes into the opposition box have gone, again, marginally up from 1.44 to 1.64 per game, but the accuracy of those passes have gone up from 37% to 56%. So, we're talking about a player here who's very good with the ball at his feet, passing the ball and really picking out players. And as far as the stats can tell me, it's that he's getting far more accurate and he's getting far sharper at picking out passes and picking out teammates. And I think his future at Aberdeen is undoubtedly the kind of leader in that midfield pulling the strings for that team.
Is that a testament to him, James, that we've covered in great detail multiple times the kind of struggles at Aberdeen and that Derek McInnes and Aberdeen have had this season? Is it a testament to him that some of these stats are improving in a team that necessarily aren't performing, particularly in the final third?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly encouraging. But I mean, Aberdeen fans might disagree with me, but from what I've seen of them this season, like Lewis Ferguson is really carrying that team, especially in the middle of the park. I think that he's the one, like Stefan said, that really sort of makes him tick, and we are sort of seeing him develop into more of a playmaker. I think one of the things that really caught my eye about Ferguson is the fact that he's both comfortably committed the most fouls in the league, and he's also easily the most fouled player in the league. And I think I think that says a lot in that. Obviously opposition teams are trying to stop him, and maybe he's he's getting maybe a bit of a rough treatment, maybe he's giving it back, but I think that that sort of underlines just how big a threat he is and how important he is to Aberdeen. Without him in that side, I could not see them pushing for Europe this season. I really couldn't. I think he's absolutely vital, and to do that in just his second season at the club at the age that he is incredible. Because Aberdeen are a massive team, and he's already running the show at the age of 20. That's really impressive. The thing though that I think that McInnes really needs to have a word with him about is shooting, because he's one of those guys. He hits shots from stupid positions. He does it all the time. Just don't do it. Just pass that teammate instead. I mean, this season when we submitted a quiz to the SFA pub quiz, and we were looking at which player had hit the most shots without scoring a goal, and I can't remember what. I think it was maybe Stephen Davis at Rangers, but when I was looking into that, I was looking at Lewis Ferguson, and this season he scored 1 league goal, but he's hit 50 shots, which is just a nonsense. He's clearly a very talented player. He's got lots of strings to his bow. Shooting from distance clearly isn't one of them. I'm sure now, as soon as the football does start back, he'll go on a run of scoring like long range screamers every week. But certainly, McInnes needs to say, look, right, you're getting in promising positions. You can see you get an eye for goal. Don't hit a shot. Look for a teammate instead. Hold the ball up. See what else is happening. So, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with Ferguson. He's clearly developing into a really interesting player, but there's still room for improvement there as well. Of course, as is the case with any player.
Yeah, those shooting stats are me at 5-a-sides level. Stefan, you're talking about, or James is talking about how he's really dragging that Aberdeen team up to a certain standard this season. I'll give you a quick kind of scenario. Who would be more of a loss for them at this stage, Scott McKenna or Lewis Ferguson?
Well, I'll be diplomatic here and say Lewis Ferguson simply because he's high on our list, but I actually do agree with that though, because I think James is right in saying that he does to an extent kind of drag that team along this season, at least from midfield, and you got to remember as well that midfield has been completely torn apart, and McInnes is in the process of rebuilding it, and for a large part of the season Ferguson seems to be the only one who's consistent. The only thing I really add to that conversation about him is that I kind of looked up comparisons with two other players in Scotland, like two other Scottish midfielders who've moved on to the Premier League and are doing really well for themselves. And the most obvious comparison is Kenny McLean right now. And at this age, Kenny McLean was playing for St Mirren and he had 4 goals that season for them. So it's nothing to turn your nose up at by any means, but he was still playing in Paisley at that point. Another one that kind of stood out to me is Stuart Armstrong, who was still at Dundee United at this age, and he'd scored 1 goal and 7 assists that season for them. So, by no means is this an exact science, but you could maybe make a decent argument that Ferguson is actually further along in his progression than maybe either of these two guys were at that age. And, obviously they've both gone on to become full Scotland internationals and are doing very well for their own English Premier League side. So that's the kind of potential I think Ferguson has. I think he's a player who will only get better at Aberdeen and could definitely go on and play at the highest level in English football, or perhaps even better at another top league in Europe.
I mean, yeah, you're kind of talking about him moving to a higher level. He's already been linked with Rangers. James, could you see him doing well there at this stage, or do you think it's probably better for him to stay at Aberdeen and then, as Stefan says, be looking for a move down south or somewhere else in Europe?
Yeah, I think the most important thing at the moment is just that he stays at Aberdeen, keeps getting games, because I think obviously the link with Rangers is always going to be there because of his uncle, and I think that if Rangers signed him tomorrow, I think he'd go straight into the starting 11. But the issue would be is that we've seen so many young players go to Rangers in recent seasons, and they've just disappeared off the face of the earth or been loaned away down south. Like look at Greg Docherty, even like Ross McCrory's got sent away to Portsmouth. Guys like Jake Hasty as well. Even to a lesser extent, someone like Jordan Jones, who's obviously a bit older, but a lot of players who have performed well in the Premiership have moved to Rangers over the last couple of seasons and then not managed to get a game. And I think that's something that players need to be wary of. And while, as I say, I think that Ferguson's absolutely good enough to start week in, week out for Rangers at present, I would still be wary. Just, as we keep saying, they need minutes, he needs minutes, and Aberdeen are providing him that, and he gets to be, the sort of the key man at Aberdeen. And I think having that experience at such a young age can really help you develop into a really excellent player later on.